The judge did not look at me when he said it. He looked at the man standing to my right. Doctor, before we proceed, I'd like to see the complete evaluation file, not the summary, the full record. If the motion before the court was granted that morning, I would lose independent access to every joint account by 12 p.m. Temporary financial conservatorship, immediate effect. Papers shifted across the courtroom. A chair leg scraped once against the tile. My husband, Ryan Carter, adjusted his cuff and kept his eyes forward. Dr. Malcolm Reeves placed a thin gray folder on the evidence table. That is the complete psychological assessment conducted on April 12th, he said evenly. The judge nodded once. For clarification, this reflects the entire clinical file. Yes, Your Honor. The clerk reached for the folder. It contained 11 pages. I kept my hands folded on the table. I had been advised to remain calm, not reactive. I had no intention of doing anything else. Ryan's attorney, Melissa Grant, leaned slightly forward. Your Honor, the report summarizes the relevant findings supporting our petition. The judge did not respond immediately. He turned the folder open and scanned the first page. The invoice submitted reflects 6 billable hours, he said. This file appears limited. Dr. Reeves adjusted his glasses. The narrative reflects my professional conclusions. I understand that, the judge replied. I am asking about the underlying materials. A pause followed, not dramatic, procedural. Ryan shifted once in his seat. His yellow legal pad rested untouched in front of him. The petition filed 9 days earlier stated that I was experiencing escalating paranoia, financial obsession, and impaired judgment. It requested temporary control of marital funds pending further psychiatric review. The conservatorship request listed one specific concern, my compulsive documentation of ordinary household spending. The judge continued, Dr. Reeves, how long was the in-person evaluation? Approximately 42 minutes. And did you administer standardized testing? No, Your Honor. Based on the clinical presentation, it did not appear necessary. For the record, the judge said calmly, which instruments were considered and declined? Dr. Reeves hesitated briefly. The MMPI-2 and cognitive screening tools. And were intake notes maintained? Yes. They are not in this file. Melissa stood. Your Honor, if the court requires supplemental documentation, we can provide it. The judge nodded slightly. I will require it. He turned another page. Dr. Reeves, during those 42 minutes, did Mrs. Carter display disorientation to time or place? No. Memory deficits? No. Incoherent speech? No. Threatening ideation? No. The courtroom remained still. Dr. Reeves cleared his throat. Her affect was controlled. However, she demonstrated persistent suspicion regarding her husband's financial behavior. The word suspicion remained in the air longer than anything else. The judge glanced briefly in my direction. Suspicion, standing alone, is not diagnostic. Ryan's jaw tightened. Melissa spoke carefully. Your Honor, this goes beyond suspicion. Mrs. Carter has been cataloging transaction timestamps, photographing account statements, and maintaining spreadsheets documenting my client's movements. This behavior has intensified over the last 11 months. The judge turned toward me. Mrs. Carter, have you been maintaining financial records? Yes. For what purpose? To reconcile joint account activity. My tone did not change. He nodded once. When did you begin doing that? June 4th at 11:16 p.m. Ryan looked at me then, not angry, calculating. The judge made a note. And what prompted that date? A withdrawal notification. Melissa interjected. Your Honor, this fixation is precisely what concerns my client. Normal marital spending has been reframed as misconduct. The judge remained neutral. How many withdrawals are at issue? I answered. 27. Over what period? 11 months. Ryan inhaled once through his nose. The judge continued. Dr. Reeves, were you provided copies of the bank records referenced in the petition? I was provided context by Mr. Carter, regarding escalating accusations. So you did not independently review the financial statements? No. For the sake of clarity, the judge said evenly, your conclusion that Mrs. Carter's concerns are delusional was formed without examining the transactions themselves? Dr. Reeves paused. Yes. No one raised their voices. The judge closed the folder. I am not reaching conclusions today. However, before this court restricts access to marital funds, I will require a complete evidentiary foundation. Melissa remained composed. Of course, Your Honor. The judge continued. Dr. Reeves, I am ordering production of all intake notes, testing considerations, billing records, insure submissions, and time logs associated with this evaluation, certified copies, within 5 business days. A slight shift passed through the room. He then added, additionally, I will require certified statements for all joint accounts since June 1st of last year to present. Ryan leaned toward Melissa and spoke quietly. She nodded once but did not smile. If the documentation supports the petition, the judge concluded, the matter will proceed accordingly. If it does not, we will address that as well. The clerk marked the order at 9:38 a.m. The hearing was continued for 14 days. Ryan stood when instructed. He did not look at me. Outside the courtroom, Melissa spoke first. This is procedural. We'll compile the additional materials. Dr. Reeves avoided direct eye contact as he placed the gray folder into his briefcase. In the hallway, Ryan finally addressed me. You're escalating this, he said evenly. I did not respond immediately. The elevator arrived 12 seconds later. We stepped inside. I'm responding, I said. The doors closed. If the conservatorship had been granted that morning, access to our remaining balance, $83,214 as of 8:02 a.m., would have transferred to Ryan's sole control pending psychiatric clearance. That did not happen. Instead, the court requested documents. What Ryan did not know was simple. The 27 withdrawals referenced in court were not comprehensive. They were selected. I had retained complete digital copies of every monthly statement since June 1st, each file time-stamped, each transaction cross-indexed. The documentation did not fit inside a gray folder. It existed across 2 encrypted drives, 1 secure cloud archive, and 312 labeled PDFs. I had not prepared them for confrontation. I prepared them in case I was ever required to prove that I was not unstable. The first file was saved 3 minutes after the notification appeared, June 4th at 11:19 p.m. I did not stop after that. The court order was uploaded to the case portal at 10:12 a.m. By 10:19, Ryan had already forwarded it to 3 people. I know that because the email notification preview appeared briefly on the shared tablet still logged into our joint account. The subject line read, Temporary Review, Next Steps. The order did not grant him conservatorship, but it did not deny it either. It scheduled review, and review in family court creates space. Space allows narratives to grow. By 1:40 p.m., Ryan filed a supplemental declaration, 9 alleged incidents, 3 wellness concerns, 27 highlighted withdrawals. The filing described my documentation as escalating fixation and financial persecution. At 3:07 p.m., his attorney submitted a request for temporary overnight custody adjustment pending psychological clarification. No emergency hearing, just a request, procedural. At 4:32 p.m., I received notice that the court had scheduled a limited review of custodial structure for April 7, 14 days from the initial hearing. Ryan did not call me that evening. He sent a text at 6:11 p.m. We need stability right now. I did not respond. Instead, I logged into the school district parent portal at 6:18 p.m. There was a note uploaded by the school counselor at 2:55 p.m. Parent expressed concern regarding home stress environment. The parent listed was Ryan. I read the note twice. No behavioral concerns were documented for our daughter, no academic decline, just environmental concern. At 7:02 p.m., I requested a copy of the counselor's full communication log under district policy. At 7:19 p.m., I exported 6 months of call history from our shared mobile account. 84 calls placed from Ryan's secondary line between 9 p.m. and midnight. Not labeled, just timestamps. The next morning at 8:43 a.m., Melissa filed an addendum attaching screenshots of 27 text messages, highlighted in yellow. They showed me asking, "Where was this charge from? Why is there a duplicate withdrawal? Why was this account opened?" The screenshots did not include timestamps. They did not include the replies. At 9:15 a.m., I compared them against my own archived thread. 4 messages had been removed between the second and third screenshot. 2 of them contained his explanations. 1 contained a photograph he had sent. Context changes perception. By noon, Ryan submitted documentation of 3 wellness concerns: an urgent care visit I had scheduled for anxiety in September, a canceled dinner with friends in November, and a 2:14 a.m. online banking login in January. The urgent care record listed mild situational stress, no medication adjustment required. The canceled dinner was followed by a flu diagnosis 2 days later. The 2:14 a.m. login corresponded to an automatic fraud alert text sent at 2:11 a.m. None of that appeared in the filing. At 1:06 p.m., the court granted a temporary modification. No overnight custody exchanges until the psychological review was complete. 30 days. Not permanent, not punitive, just precautionary. Ryan sent a second message at 1:22 p.m. "This doesn't have to get worse." I placed the phone face down. At 2:03 p.m., I contacted my attorney, Laura Mitchell. She did not raise her voice. "They're building instability through accumulation, not through severity," she said. "How do we respond?" "With structure." At 4:30 p.m., I requested my complete medical file from the clinic where Dr. Reeves had conducted the evaluation. At 4:18 p.m., the administrative assistant replied, "Release authorization on file indicates summary transmission only." I read that line twice. I had signed a general evaluation consent, not a summary limitation. At 4:31 p.m., I requested a copy of the signed authorization. At 5:02 p.m., I received a scanned PDF. The authorization form included a checked box beside Release Condensed Clinical Summary. The full record release box was blank. The check mark did not match my handwriting. I enlarged the image. The pen pressure differed from the signature line below it. I forwarded the file to Laura at 5:14 p.m. Her reply came at 5:22. "Do not contact them directly again. Preserve everything." At 6:07 p.m., I downloaded certified bank statements from June 1st through present, 73 pages. At 7:92 p.m., I created a new directory labeled March 18th through present, court-ordered review. Inside it, I began categorizing: medical records, communication logs, financial statements, school correspondence, court filings. At 7:33 p.m., Ryan called. I let it ring. He left a voicemail. "Why are you doing this?" His tone was controlled. Not angry, controlled. At 8:11 p.m., I listened to the voicemail once. At 8:14 p.m., I archived it. At 9:02 p.m., I reviewed Dr. Reeves' 11-page summary again. The diagnostic language relied on 3 phrases: persistent suspicion, escalating fixation, and financial distortion. There were no test scores attached, no structured assessment results, no timeline chart, just conclusion statements. At 9:47 p.m., I opened my therapy attendance record from the past 18 months. 14 sessions documented, 5 medication adjustments across that period, all physician monitored. Stability noted in the final 4 visits. Those final 4 visits were not referenced in the summary. At 10:16 p.m., I cross-checked appointment dates against the timeline of alleged instability incidents. 2 of the 9 incidents occurred before any documented anxiety treatment. 1 occurred during a month when no financial withdrawals were recorded. Patterns matter, but only if someone examines them. The temporary custody order did not label me unstable. It stated, pending clarification. Clarification depends on documentation. At 10:59 p.m., I encrypted the updated archive. By midnight, the directory contained 148 organized files. Ryan believed the narrative was about emotion. The court believed it was about safety. Dr. Reeves believed it was about presentation. None of them had yet reviewed the full record. The 27 withdrawals referenced in court were not random. They were clustered. 6 occurred within a 19-day period. 3 were reversed within 48 hours. 2 were transferred between internal accounts. The pattern did not suggest instability. It suggested concealment. I did not send that analysis to anyone. Not yet. At 8:03 a.m. the following morning, Laura filed a formal motion requesting complete medical disclosure, original intake notes, billing time logs, insurance claim submissions, and the unedited communication record between Dr. Reeves and Ryan. The hearing on April 7th would determine whether temporary isolation became extended separation. Ryan believed the 30-day adjustment would pressure me into conceding. He underestimated documentation. He assumed accumulation would equal instability. He did not know that the summary submitted to court was a fraction of the file it referenced, and he did not know that the authorization checkbox he relied upon had already been preserved at 300% magnification. The narrative was expanding, but so was the record.
The certified mail receipt showed delivery at 9:14 a.m. The clinic signed for it. By 10:32, Laura called. "They have 7 business days to respond," she said. "If they resist, we move to compel." I opened the directory labeled March 18th to present and created a subfolder, Medical, Full Record, Pending. Everything currently before the court relied on an 11-page psychological summary prepared by Dr. Malcolm Reeves. 14 therapy sessions had been condensed into brief references. 18 months of marriage counseling were described as ongoing relational volatility. 5 documented medication adjustments were summarized as treatment instability. No primary progress notes were attached. No intake assessments. No dosage stabilization charts. Only conclusions. At 11:06 a.m., I exported 6 months of call logs from our mobile carrier. The raw file contained 1,842 entries. I filtered by contact frequency. Ryan had called Dr. Reeves 12 times in the 30 days preceding the March 18th filing. My calls to Dr. Reeves during that same period, 0. I saved the filtered report as a separate PDF and added it to the archive. At 12:48 p.m., I began reconstructing the timeline referenced in the emergency petition. 9 alleged incidents. I entered them chronologically into a spreadsheet. Then I inserted corresponding medical appointments, school records, and financial transactions beside each entry. Incident 1, September 12th, urgent care visit documented. Disposition, released same day, no restrictions. Incident 2, October 3rd, petition described withdrawal behavior. Primary care note dated October 5th, confirmed influenza diagnosis. Incident 3, November 18th, described as emotional outburst. Therapy log indicated session completed. Mood stable. By 3:15 p.m., I had mapped all 9 incidents. 4 entries directly conflicted with contemporaneous records. 2 required access to full therapist notes not included in the summary. 3 relied exclusively on Ryan's written description. At 4:02 p.m., Laura emailed confirmation that the clinic had acknowledged receipt of the records request. No objection filed. I continued. The psychological summary referenced a 3-session consultation. I searched my insurance portal. Dr. Reeves met with me twice in person. 1 intake evaluation, 1 follow-up. The 3rd session referenced in his summary was a 42-minute phone call initiated by Ryan. Billed under code, collateral consultation. Duration listed as 0.7 hours. At 5:26 p.m., I downloaded the explanation of benefits. Total billed for evaluation services, $3,200. Total approved, $2,480. The submitted summary described 3 evaluative meetings. The billing classification did not. I added a column to the spreadsheet, session type, evaluative/collateral. The third entry read, collateral. At 6:40 p.m., I cataloged 42 archived audio files stored on my encrypted drive. Most were automatically saved voicemails from our shared account. I transcribed 6 that corresponded to the petition timeline. They contained scheduling confirmations, pharmacy questions, school pickup adjustments, no threats, no erratic speech patterns. At 7:58 p.m., I reopened the medical authorization form submitted with the summary. The version on file contained a checked box limiting disclosure to a condensed psychological overview. I reviewed the digital copy stored in my email from the original signing date. The document version numbers did not match. The court copy displayed Form Revision 02/22. The version I signed was labeled Revision 1121. The checkmark appeared only on the later revision. Metadata attached to the scanned court copy indicated it was generated at 8:14 p.m. on March 16th. My electronic signature timestamp reflected 3:22 p.m. on March 12th. I placed both PDFs side by side. Font alignment differed in 2 fields. I did not annotate the comparison. I saved both under Authorization, Version Discrepancy. The next morning at 9:11 a.m., Ryan sent a brief email to Laura, copied to me. The expanded file won't change the outcome, he wrote. The summary is sufficient. No additional argument. At 9:24 a.m., Laura responded that the request for complete disclosure remained pending. At 10:17 a.m., I exported the 27 text messages submitted as exhibits. The petition copies omitted timestamps. My archived thread included them. Inserted chronologically, the messages showed intervals ranging from 18 hours to 3 days between responses. No escalation pattern. I created a comparison file. Left column, petition exhibit. Right column, full thread with timestamps intact. At 12:41 p.m., the clinic portal updated. 73-page file available upon processing. The court still had 11 pages. I documented the difference in the spreadsheet without commentary. At 2:03 p.m., the custody evaluator, Dr. Hannah Cole, emailed both attorneys requesting clarification regarding the scope of documentation relied upon in her preliminary recommendation. Her initial report referenced the 11-page summary, no primary notes. Laura replied that a motion for complete disclosure would be filed if necessary. At 3:36 p.m., I reviewed therapist entries from December through February stored in my patient portal. 4 progress notes documented stable mood, medication compliance, and no safety concerns. Those entries were absent from the submitted summary. I logged their dates. December 14th, January 9th, February 2nd, February 28th. All within 90 days of the March 18th filing. At 4:18 p.m., Laura drafted a formal motion requesting full medical disclosure under court supervision. The motion referenced discrepancies in document versions and billing classifications without accusation. Only request. At 5:52 p.m., Ryan filed an objection citing privacy concerns and irrelevant treatment detail. The objection did not address the revision mismatch. It did not address the collateral billing code. At 7:07 p.m., I updated the spreadsheet again. Column headings now read: Allegation Primary Record Summary, Reference Session, Classification Contradiction Present. 7 of 9 rows reflected contradictions or incomplete representation. I encrypted the updated file. 2 days later, at 10:08 a.m., the court clerk logged receipt of supplemental materials pending review. No ruling issued. Temporary custody limitation remained active. 30 days total. Day 19 when the discrepancy file was archived. Day 22 when the motion for disclosure was formally entered. At 1:14 p.m., Ryan sent another email. Dragging this out won't help, he wrote. No further detail. I saved the message without reply. By 4:46 p.m., the archive directory had grown from 148 files to 227. 6 months of call logs. 42 audio files cataloged. 73 pages pending submission. Authorization revision mismatch preserved. Collateral consultation classification documented. 9 incidents mapped against primary records. The summary remained in the court file. The label remained unchanged. The objection remained active. But the record now existed in parallel to the narrative. At 8:32 p.m., Laura confirmed that the motion for complete disclosure would be heard alongside the April 7th proceeding. No judicial commentary yet. No conclusions drawn. The 11-page summary still stood uncorrected. I closed the spreadsheet and secured the encrypted drive. The preparation phase was complete. No argument had been made. No accusation stated. Only documentation aligned. April 7th would determine which version of the record the court reviewed. The clerk called the case at 9:03 a.m. Ryan's attorney stood first. Dr. Malcolm Reeves was already sworn in. The 11-page psychological summary sat clipped at the top of the file stack. Judge Allison Grant looked down at the record, then at Laura. "Counsel," she said, "I have received supplemental materials. Before we proceed, I need clarification regarding scope." No one spoke immediately. Ryan remained still, hands folded. Dr. Reeves adjusted his glasses. Laura stood. "Your Honor, the summary previously submitted reflects a limited extract of treatment history. We have requested that the full 73-page medical file be entered for review under protective order." The judge turned a page slowly. "Dr. Reeves," she said, "were you provided the complete treatment record before forming your opinion?" He cleared his throat. "I reviewed the documentation made available to me." "Which consisted of?" "A summarized clinical overview." Laura did not interrupt. The judge glanced at the clerk. "The court will mark the full 73-page file as Exhibit D for in-camera review." No reaction from the gallery. Ryan shifted once in his seat. Dr. Hannah Cole, the custody evaluator, leaned forward slightly. Judge Grant continued. "The prior submission consisted of 11 pages. The newly received file contains 73. That is a material difference." Silence held. Laura approached the lectern. "Your Honor, may the record reflect billing documentation indicating that one of the 3 referenced sessions was classified as a collateral consultation?" The judge nodded. Laura handed up a single-page insurance summary. Total billed, $3,200. Approved, $2,480. Collateral consultation, 0.7 hours. Judge Grant reviewed the line item. "Dr. Reeves," she said, "was the collateral consultation included in your evaluative assessment?" He hesitated briefly. "It informed my understanding." "Was it a direct clinical session with Mrs. Carter?" "No." Ryan's attorney rose. "Your Honor, collateral consultations are standard." Judge Grant lifted her hand. "I am aware of their function. I am clarifying representation." She turned another page. 4 therapist progress notes dated December 14th, January 9th, February 2nd, and February 28th indicate stable mood and compliance. They are not referenced in your summary. Why? Dr. Reeves glanced toward Ryan's counsel before responding. "My summary focused on areas of concern. Did you determine that the omitted notes were irrelevant?" "They were less probative." Judge Grant paused. "The filing on March 18th cites 9 incidents supporting instability. 7 of those incidents align with dates where primary medical records indicate no safety concerns." Ryan's attorney shifted papers quickly. Laura remained still. Dr. Cole spoke for the first time. "Your Honor, my preliminary recommendation relied on the 11-page summary. I did not review primary notes." Judge Grant nodded once. "That is now clear." She turned to Laura. "There is also a question regarding authorization scope." Laura approached again and submitted the side-by-side form comparison. The judge examined both documents carefully. "Form revision, 1121 versus 0222, she read aloud. "Signature timestamp, March 12th. Document generation timestamp, March 16th. No one moved. "Dr. Reeves," she said evenly, "did you alter the authorization form?" "No, Your Honor." "Did you verify the version used for submission?" "I relied on administrative staff." Judge Grant placed both forms flat on the bench. "The discrepancy will be noted." Ryan leaned toward his attorney and whispered something brief. The judge continued. "The emergency petition filed March 18th referenced 3 evaluative sessions. Billing reflects 2 direct sessions and 1 collateral call. The summary did not distinguish that classification." She closed the folder. "The court is not determining final custody today. However, representation accuracy is central to credibility." Ryan's attorney stood again. "Your Honor, even with expanded documentation, concerns remain regarding emotional regulation." Judge Grant interrupted. "Concerns must be supported by complete records, not selective extracts." She turned toward Dr. Cole. Doctor, given the expanded file, are you prepared to modify or withhold your prior recommendation pending review? Dr. Cole nodded. Yes, Your Honor. I would require review of the full 73 pages before maintaining any limitation. Ryan's posture tightened. Judge Grant looked at the clerk. The temporary custody adjustment entered April 7th was contingent on evidentiary reliability. That reliability is now under question. The courtroom remained quiet. No raised voices, no visible outburst. Only paper moving across polished wood. Judge Grant spoke again. This court requires complete transparency when medical stability is alleged. Partial summaries are insufficient. She turned to Laura. File a formal supplement incorporating the full treatment record and billing documentation within 48 hours. Laura nodded. Yes, Your Honor. The judge addressed Ryan's counsel. Until review is complete, no additional emergency motions will be entertained absent new evidence. A short pause followed. Then, the matter is continued for evidentiary clarification. She struck the gavel once. Proceedings concluded at 9:47 a.m. Ryan remained seated for several seconds after others began standing. Dr. Reeves gathered his papers slowly. The 11-page summary was no longer clipped to the top of the stack. It sat beneath the 73-page file. No determination had been announced, no declarations made, but the record had shifted. The collateral classification was entered. The revision discrepancy was preserved. The omitted therapist notes were acknowledged on record. 7 of 9 cited incidents now required reconciliation with primary documentation. Outside the courtroom, Ryan spoke quietly to his attorney. I thought this was settled, he said. Laura did not respond. We walked down the hallway without discussion. At 11:18 a.m., the clerk's online docket updated. Supplemental medical file received. Review pending. The temporary custody limitation remained in effect. No reversal had been declared, but the evidentiary foundation supporting it had changed. The summary no longer stood alone, and the court had required full transparency before proceeding further. Judge Allison Grant did not read the ruling immediately. She closed the 73-page file and looked at Dr. Malcolm Reeves first. Before I enter an order, she said at 9:12 a.m., I want the record to reflect what has changed since April 7th. The courtroom was quiet. Ryan's attorney had a yellow legal pad open but had stopped writing. Dr. Hannah Cole sat with her updated evaluation report, now 19 pages instead of the original 8. Laura stood beside me without speaking. Judge Grant continued. On March 18th, this court received an 11-page psychological summary alleging instability, supported by 9 incidents and 3 wellness concerns. She turned a page. On April 7th, a temporary 30-day custody limitation was entered pending clarification. Another pause. Since that date, the court has reviewed the full 73-page treatment record, billing classifications, therapist progress notes, insurance documentation, and communication logs covering a 6-month period. No one interrupted. The expanded file includes 14 documented therapy sessions, 5 medication adjustments, 4 progress notes reflecting stability within 90 days of filing, and confirmation that 1 emergency evaluation request was dismissed the same day it was initiated. Ryan's attorney shifted slightly. Judge Grant's voice remained level. The collateral consultation referenced in the summary was billed as 0.7 hours and did not involve direct clinical assessment of Mrs. Carter. She looked at Dr. Reeves. Your summary did not distinguish that classification. No, Your Honor. She turned to Ryan. The 9 alleged incidents are either contradicted by contemporaneous medical records or rely solely on your written description without supporting documentation. Ryan's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. Judge Grant continued. 2 school counselor reports dated February 16th and March 4th indicate no behavioral concerns observed during school hours. She closed the file. This court finds no evidentiary basis to support a finding of instability. The words were direct. No emphasis, no raised tone. Laura did not react. Ryan stared forward. Judge Grant spoke again. The temporary custody limitation entered April 7th is vacated effective immediately. The clerk typed the entry at 9:18 a.m. Full custody rights were restored without conditions. Dr. Cole cleared her throat. Your Honor, in light of the complete record, my recommendation is revised. I no longer advise restriction. I do recommend structured co-parenting sessions. Judge Grant nodded. That recommendation is noted. She turned back to Ryan. Given the presentation of partial documentation and the authorization discrepancy, the court is entering a protective order regarding medical record submissions moving forward. Any future filings must include complete, unaltered documentation. She paused. The authorization form discrepancy dated March 16th remains under administrative review. This court is not making a finding of misconduct at this time. However, it is concerning. Dr. Reeves lowered his eyes to the table. Judge Grant addressed him directly. Your testimony in this matter will be limited to observations based on complete records. Summaries prepared without full file review will not be given substantial weight in this courtroom. Yes, Your Honor. She turned to financial matters. Mrs. Carter paid a $12,480 legal retainer, responding to the March 18th filing. In light of the evidentiary deficiencies presented, the court orders Mr. Carter to reimburse $6,240 within 45 days. Ryan's attorney stood. Your Honor, the order is proportional, she replied calmly. The burden created was avoidable. She continued. Both parties are directed to complete 8 co-parenting sessions within 60 days. Costs will be divided equally. She looked at me briefly. There is no current finding of mental instability. No supervised visitation is required. No further psychological evaluation is ordered at this time. The ruling concluded at 9:26 a.m. No applause, no visible reaction, only a shift in posture. Ryan gathered his papers slowly. Dr. Reeves closed his binder without looking up. Laura handed me a copy of the signed order. 7 pages, stamped and entered. Outside the courtroom, the hallway was quieter than it had been on April 7th. Ryan spoke first. I didn't think they'd go through all of it. I did not respond. There was nothing procedural to add. At 10:42 a.m., the online docket updated. Temporary custody order vacated. Full custodial rights restored. At 11:15 a.m., the protective order regarding medical submissions was entered separately. At 2:03 p.m., Laura emailed confirmation that reimbursement terms were enforceable if unpaid after 45 days. By 5:30 p.m., the school administration received notice that no restrictions remained. The following Monday, I resumed standard pickup without supervision. No additional forms required. 2 weeks later, the first co-parenting session was scheduled for May 14th at 3 p.m. Ryan attended. So did I. There were no references to instability, only scheduling, communication protocols, and calendar structure. On June 21st, the reimbursement transfer of $6,240 posted to my account. Documented. Closed. Dr. Reeves submitted a supplemental clarification letter to the court, acknowledging that his prior summary had not incorporated the full 73-page record. It was entered into the file without commentary. No disciplinary action was announced publicly, but his testimony in this case was now limited. The narrative had shifted from opinion to documentation. No further emergency motions were filed. No additional allegations surfaced. The 9 incidents remained in the original petition, unchanged. They simply no longer carried weight. 4 therapist notes remained in the permanent court record. 4 dates that contradicted a conclusion. The collateral billing code remained attached to the evaluation summary. 0.7 hours. The authorization discrepancy remained flagged. Revision 1121 and 0222, both preserved. Nothing erased, nothing dramatized. On July 3rd, the court issued a final status review, confirming compliance with the co-parenting order and closure of the emergency matter. Case status, stabilized. No mention of instability, only compliance metrics. The system had corrected itself, not because I argued, not because I reacted, because the record expanded. 14 therapy sessions existed, whether summarized or not. 5 medication adjustments were documented, whether highlighted or not. 6 months of call logs did not change based on narrative framing. 73 pages did not shrink to 11 once requested. The authority did not respond to accusation. It responded to completeness. I never submitted a statement defending my character. I submitted records. I never requested sympathy. I requested disclosure. On March 18th, a label entered the courtroom. On April 7th, it restricted custody for 30 days. On April 26th, after full review, it was removed. The timeline remains intact. So does the file. Stability does not require performance. It requires documentation.